Listen, we talking about practice, not a game, not a game.
If you're looking for the best basketball talk in the universe, you just found it. This is Deep Hoops, where fans are the host. Tim Brayboy, Troy Ramel Royal, and me, your point guard, Jehudi. We're talking basketball, all basketball, and nothing but basketball. So sit back and enjoy the best basketball talk in the podcast universe. This is Deep Hoops.
The best times of my week happen when we're recording Deep Hoops. You know, I mean, just getting together and the stuff that we talk about before the camera starts rolling is just as exciting. So hopefully you'll be a part of that as the cameras roll. We'll just keep it moving. I am the Minister.
And I'm Rod, the Straw.
And I'm Tim.
And this is Deep Hoops, where we're not experts, but we're passionate fans talking about the game that we love, basketball. And of course, we're in the March Madness now in April, and we dominate with NBA talk, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the finals that happened last night. We're recording this on a Tuesday. The finals happened last night. And when we recorded the show last week, the two of you had Villanova and Michigan.
Yes.
I had Villanova and Loyola. I was just going for the underdog, but I mean, you got what you wanted. But at the end of the day, did we get what we wanted? I mean, it was a blowout. It was close at first, but it just seemed like, you know, Jay Wright knew what he was going to do. And when he put in, what's his name?
Dante Da Vinci.
DiVincenzo or something? Da Vinci?
Da Vinci.
The Da Vinci Chronicles. When he put in DiVincenzo, that turned the whole game around. What were your thoughts about the game, and what are your thoughts about Villanova? Are they going to be a dynasty?
Well, I thought the game went exactly what I thought it would be. All year long, I thought Villanova was the better team. I thought Jay Wright was going to do a good job. He's a great coach. But I thought they had a nice blend of juniors, a nice freshman that came in to help out. I just thought overall they were the better team. I thought Michigan was a Cinderella type team. And a lot of times the Cinderella teams, either they sweep through, or the minute that they find a little bit of a roadblock or a hesitation, then the stage gets too big for them, and then the better team takes over. And they came out last night. They had the big guy, Wagner, looked like he was going to take over and give us like maybe a Danny Manning performance or something. Mm-hmm. But then Jay Wright called a timeout, weathered the storm, inserted a spark plug by the name of Dante Da Vinci. Da Vinci, I'm sorry. And
DiVincenzo.
And what he did was he came on and he gave like a Lou Williams, Vinny Microwave Johnson type performance, and they just simply didn't have an answer for that guy. And once he got going, he got in the game and they went on a 23-7 run. And one thing about college basketball, and you guys may see what I see, it is clearly a game of runs. And the minute you don't answer a run,
you're out.
And there's another run that comes,
it's over.
I sent Byron a text in the second half. Game had really started the second half. I said, yo, man, I'm quoting Kenny Smith. It's over. You knew at that point, once they figured everything out, it was over.
Yeah,
it was over.
I think I sent you a text when Wagner, they called the offensive foul on the hook, and he dunked it. And I was looking at it on my phone, and I was like, ooh, nice dunk. Then I said, oh, they called offensive foul because it was a double tech and all that. But you couldn't tell because the way TBS did it, they went to commercial a little bit too quick, so you didn't know exactly what was going on. But then it was like 15 at that point. I was like, oh, this is a wrap.
You knew once Michigan is known for its defense, it wasn't really known for its offensive powers. So when they went down, you knew that they didn't have the offense to bring them back. So they had to keep that game close, and they didn't. I have a question before we move to the next piece. What team could have given Villanova a harder run?
I think that it would have had to be a team that
Duke.
it's well coached.
Mm-hmm.
Duke comes to mind, and to me, maybe North Carolina, but it had to be someone that the coach can win a half.
Right.
Or win a majority of the half. Because if it came down to the players, I think Villanova's players, they play so well together that they will probably outplay any program that features one and done.
Mm-hmm. That's the thing. That's the big thing with Nova. They redshirt. You rarely hear red shirts in basketball these days. He redshirts players. It's normally the one and done. He has a different type of recruiting scheme going, or a different type of recruiting plan, where he has the Northeast locked down. He's locked down the Northeast, but he's not recruiting 5-star one and dones. He's recruiting 3- and 4-star players that get to stay longer. They're more experienced. He's not recruiting 17 and 18s. They're not 17 and 18-year-olds aren't playing. And 19 and 20 and 21 and 22-year-olds playing. It's the men against boys.
Is that the new recipe?
That may be the new recipe. He's really taken, what he's done is taken the mid-major type of plan, where those guys aren't good enough to go to the pros. They aren't really going to the pros. They may go overseas, or they may latch on at the end of someone's bench. But for the most part, they're just basic college players. He's taking a high-level mid-major, which Nova is a major program, but remember, they don't have a football program. So it is kind of a quote-unquote mid-major, high mid-major. He's taking that approach and run with it.
You brought up another topic, and we got to move it along. But in that finals game, name the guys that you see going to the pros.
Well, I think on Michigan has maybe two or three players that can make it to the pros. I don't have their names. They were kind of the guards. I saw a couple of one-on-one plays with them that I thought was good. I just think that they need to come back. Mm-hmm. I think if Michigan's probably going to lose Wagner, I think he's going to go pro. But if they were to keep that group together, I think Michigan can return back to the championship game. This is a team that's only going to get better. As far as Villanova go, Jalen Brunson is going to go to the pros. I actually think Dante Da Vinci is going to go to the pros. I think that he's going to be on someone's bench come next year if he was to declare, and Mikal Bridges is going to go to the pros.
Mm-hmm. I think DiVincenzo, he should be in the pros. Now, someone texted me after the game, will he make it to pros? Here's my thought on that. Yes, he'll make it to the pros. Will he stick? And sticking by that I mean he's got to continue to always work on his game, get better, adjust. And it also depends on what program he goes to, what team he goes to.
Yeah. And also who's going to go to the pros probably next year is Jay Wright. But before we move on.
Well, that's a good segue.
But before we move on, I just want to acknowledge, to me, the play of the game last night. And I thought it was the two-handed block by Dante Da Vinci. I mean, he went up to block a dunk straight up with two hands. I mean, I think that was probably the greatest block that I've seen in college basketball.
He had one of the best games, one of the best nights of a basketball player that wasn't a superstar that I've ever seen. And I mean, you expect it from your superstar.
And he came off the bench.
He came off the bench.
It was
unbelievable, but we got to move on. You just said Jay Wright is going to the pros. The funny thing about it, that's the straw. Right? You're stirring the drink, so let's chop it up. In my opinion, why would he go to the pros? I mean, the money is not much more.
Not much more.
There's no real security unless you deal with the recruiting issues in the NCAA. There's nothing that's going to really draw him to the pros. Why do you think that he'll go to the pros?
Actually, I'm not sure if he will go to the pros. I know that after last night's performance and possibly being a dynasty by today's standards in college basketball, he's going to have the attention of many programs in the league. I think Phoenix might try to give him a call.
They went after him before and he turned them down.
In our production meeting, you guys mentioned Milwaukee. Obviously, listening to his comments after the game, how he's talking about he's from the area. His wife graduated from the university he's coaching at. You mentioned how he has it on lock with Northeast recruits. New York might be a spot for him. And one thing we known in the past, Dolan pays his coaches well. So I could see his phone ringing right about now.
Okay, all right. Being Mr. New York Knick, why would you go there? I mean, you know,
get fired.
Well, you're guaranteed to get fired. You're guaranteed to make a lot of money, but you're in a dysfunctional organization. I don't think the money run is, and I don't know. What is he making? $5 million a year? $3 million? What is he making?
What do we say, 4?
He's probably making about 4. New York might even double that. Here's the thing. The Knicks is dysfunctional because of their owner. The Knicks is dysfunctional because they haven't won nothing in years. And yet, it's still the Knicks. But the new regime, if they can bring in Jay Wright, somebody like that, it could be a step in the
Rather see Mark Jackson go there.
I'd rather see Mark Jackson too. But you know what? If Mark Jackson, because here's the thing, Mark Jackson is going to be up for the same jobs as Jay Wright. And they're better jobs opening than New York. Milwaukee is probably going to be the best job opening of them all. So with Mark Jackson, spur New York and go to Milwaukee if he gets the call?
I just don't see. I don't know. I just don't see why you would want to. He has a great thing at Villanova. He's the king of Philly. So unless you told me the Sixers had an opening and he was from Philadelphia and his wife went to Villanova, then that would be different.
Right.
But the Sixers don't have an
They
opening.
don't have an opening and won't have an opening.
They won't have an opening.
So
that's why I don't see. Why would I want to go to New York with dysfunction and I'm gonna get fired in 2 or 3 years? And when I got a great thing.
I think he's staying at Villanova. He's got a good thing going at Villanova, and if he jumps to the pros, it's when they get rid of Brett Brown and in Philly, and he goes over there. You know, Ron, I was thinking during the break, why would I introduce a topic that you're so passionate about? Why don't you introduce it and break it down?
Well, this is what I want to get across to you guys out there and to my co-hosts. Is the 30,000 point club in the NBA, is it still exclusive? As of this year, we have 7 members of the elite group of the 30,000 point club. Starting in order, you got Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Karl Malone, Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, Wilt Chamberlain, Dirk Nowitzki, and now LeBron. For years, the 30,000 point club has been the pinnacle of the NBA. It's up there with the 11 championships that Bill Russell has won. But I have to ask, should it still be regarded the same? And this is why I bring this up. Of the players that played from the 50s through the mid-70s, you have one player to get into that club. And that is Wilt Chamberlain, the only player. From the players that have played from the 70s into the late 80s, you only have one player to get into that club. And that was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. From the mid-80s and into the early parts of the 2000s, you had only 2 players to get into that club. And that's Karl Malone and Michael Jordan. But in the modern day era of the new millennium, I should say, you had 3 people get into it, with a 4th one that's soon to get into it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's Kobe Bryant, Dirk Nowitzki, LeBron James, and I'm sure Kevin Durant is around the corner. And I bring this up, it's not about the 3-point line, but defenses change. The players that did it earlier, they stayed longer in college. And now I'm watching the soft defenses. It's like in baseball, it's almost equivalent to the steroid era. The 600 club, home run club, was exclusive, where it only exists of Willie Mays, Babe Ruth, and Hank Aaron. Now in the 600 club, you have Sammy Sosa, Jim Thome, Albert Pujols, Ken Griffey Jr., along with Willie Mays and Alex Rodriguez. Most of them is not even going to get in the Hall of Fame. The 500 home run club, you were automatically in the Hall of Fame. There's 18 of them. Half of them will not get in the Hall of Fame because of the steroid era. My question again is the 30,000 point club, should it be regarded the same in an era where you have soft defenses? Guys don't even go to college, so they get to play more years. They include postseason stats. Early on, the first round was a 3-game series. Second round was a 5-game series. For the last 20 years, it's been 7-game series throughout every round. So, has it been watered down to reach 30,000 points? I tend to think so. And maybe the straw stirring the drink, but I think it's a legitimate argument that is why you see more of the modern day era, more members joining. You got, of the 7, more than half was since the 2000.
But let me punch some holes in that.
Go right ahead.
You talk about coming straight out of high school or playing one and done.
Sure.
Kevin Durant's not in there.
Hey,
Kevin Garnett is not in there.
no, he's not there.
Okay. I think, to your point, there is some validity there. I think part of the valid point would be modern medicine. Players don't play as long. I mean, they weren't playing as long back then. Injuries that, an Achilles heel, I think it was, that ended Isaiah Thomas's career. Players are playing with that now, coming back from that.
If Isaiah Thomas had played 17 years, he's not scoring 30,000.
But that wasn't Isaiah's goal.
Exactly.
His goal.
That.
Every team. So you're not naming any slouches here. You didn't name individuals that shouldn't make it into the Hall of Fame. Everyone that you name is a Hall of Famer.
I'm not knocking the Hall of Fame status. Dirk Nowitzki didn't play college either. My point is that in a modern day era where the opportunity is greater to play more games due to not having to go to college and also 7-game series in each round of playoffs.
That's legitimate. That piece right there is legitimate.
I mean,
because they're counting those points. But I think, injuries plays a part in that.
And I want to say something. I was watching a 30 for 30 with Ernie and Bernie, with Ernie Grunfeld and Bernard King. And at the end, they were talking to the great Hubie Brown. And when Bernard King retired, he was number 19 on all-time leaders in scores. Now, he retired in 1991. So almost 30 years ago. He's probably down in the 40s or 50s, probably probably about 50 now, because the 3-point line, and the bigger thing with him, he lost 2 full years plus because he was hurt. He lost the 86 and the 87 season. I think he came back right at the end of the 87 season. He missed all of 86. And he came back and maybe played 5 or 6 games at the end of the 87 season. So that knee injury that cost him 2 years probably would only cost him 1 year
in today's
modern medicine. Because it was a bad injury. So it would have probably taken him a whole year. I think he got hurt probably February, March of the 1985 season. So he probably would have been out most of the 85-86 season. But he wouldn't have been out the 86-87 season. And he probably would have been able to play longer. So that's the thing you got to look at, that modern medicine. Everything kind of evolves and changes. Let's look at football. Look at wide receivers, where Lynn Swann got in the Hall of Fame. He didn't even catch 350 passes. He caught like 330. The 4 rings kind of got him, bumped him in. And the big catches in the big games kind of got him in. But 300 catches now, that's like 3 seasons worth for a real good receiver. maybe 4 seasons. So everything evolves. So you can't really, the 30,000 is going to be a 30,000. The thing in baseball is the steroid era. So you kind of want to, I kind of separate that in the smaller ballparks. The bigger ballparks in the 50s and 60s and 70s, the ballparks are real small now. So I mean, it's just a different era. So I think, you know, times change, but the 30,000 is still a 30,000.
30,000 is 30,000. They're all Hall of Famers, but we're going to keep pushing through because we got to talk about this Hall of Fame induction. Okay? And we don't need to take a break. You said HOF, and that just set me off. Didn't you just say Hall of Fame?
I said Hall of Fame.
Yes, you said Hall of Fame. And all of those guys are going into the Hall of Fame. You know who's not going into the Hall of Fame?
Chris Webber.
Chris Webber is not in the Hall of Fame. What in the world are they doing at the Hall of Fame induction?
The thing that I see is it would be different if he didn't play any college. But he was on 2 of the most iconic teams of the last 30 years. The Fab Five. The Fab Five revolutionized college basketball. Like, quiet as it's kept, Sacramento Kings revolutionized the NBA. Before the 7 seconds and less Phoenix Suns, the passing that you see in the three-point shooting, it didn't come from, it evolved the Mike D'Antoni offense in Phoenix, but it really started, if you look at those Sacramento Kings teams, that open court style, that passing, 5 out, the 5 out is Sacramento. Now, they ultimately didn't win the championship. He got hurt, and I think that maybe hurt him. He only had, really, when you break it down, he had 5 great years. But he had 2 great years in college. That's 7 great years. And Tracy McGrady only had 5 to 7 to 8.
Now, his great was probably a notch higher.
His great was a notch higher, but remember, Webber went to college for 2 years, and he was on the iconic one of the iconic college teams ever.
And you know, I'm not knocking
Anybody else.
You know, Grant Hill, love him, not knocking him. Didn't think he would get in this soon. I really didn't.
He only had 5 great years because Grant Hill had from 94 to 99. He got hurt in the playoffs his last year in Detroit. And the 2000s, that 2000 to 2012, he had 2 solid years with Phoenix. 2 to 3 solid years with Phoenix. Now, his college career, he could have gotten in. I think the thing with Grant Hill is his 4 years at Duke and his 5 years at Detroit, he was already a Hall of Famer.
And he's Rookie of the Year.
Right.
You know, listen, the fact that Chris Webber is not in the Hall of Fame is a travesty.
Oh,
It's a joke. It's ludicrous.
it's an abomination.
It really is. This guy here, when he was traded from Golden State to Washington, Washington got better. In fact, I remember the year Washington went to the playoffs as an 8 seed and scared Chicago Bulls. And that was him, Rasheed Wallace. And I have a feeling Rasheed Wallace is going to get in the Hall of Fame before him.
Oh, stop it. I mean, and I love Rasheed. I'm not.
And I think Rasheed Wallace is a Hall of Famer. I don't think we ever saw the best of Rasheed Wallace because he was just an ultimate team player. But Chris Webber, wherever he went, while he was in his prime, they got better. Golden State was better with him. Then he got traded to Washington. Washington got better. He did not like to trade to Sacramento.
Right.
He didn't want to go to Sacramento. He goes to Sacramento, and they changed the program around. I mean, if it wasn't for Divox mistakenly tipping it out to Robert Horry, he may have had a championship in Sacramento, going up against maybe Indiana at the time. And you made a reference to the D'Antoni play. Yeah, you can honestly say that they started that.
Started the 5 out.
Excuse me.
Started 5 out with Sacramento.
And they did it with Jay Williams, and then they did it with Mike Bibby. And they may have had one of the best starting 5s ever in basketball to never win a championship.
Yeah. You know, Amin Hassan, right?
Hate hard.
Made a comment. I'm not known for quoting Amin what's his name? Amin Hassan.
Hassan.
I'm not known for quoting him, but he said something that was pretty compelling. He says, when you look at the Hall of Fame, first of all, you got to remember, it's a basketball Hall of Fame, not an NBA Hall of Fame. So you can't just look at the NBA career. And he said, this is what really caught me. He says, so when you're looking at a person that you're going to, say, vote on inducting into the Hall of Fame, can you tell the story of basketball and leave that person out? Is the story of basketball complete if you don't mention that person's name? Tim just said he played one of the most iconic college teams, right?
College and
pros. Change the fashion, the timeout. I mean, there's so many stories that Chris Webber is associated with. And it wasn't like he was some scrub.
No, he was.
I mean, he talks about it, let us do the argument for you, Chris. Don't do the argument, let us do it for you. He talks about when he went up against Duncan, and when he went up against Dirk Nowitzki, and when he went up against all the power forwards that are, supposedly the great ones, he gave them business.
And he did.
And he did.
And he did.
And he's not in the Hall of Fame.
I mean, if you want to know the truth, during his heyday, maybe only 2 power forwards was better than him.
Who?
Tim Duncan and Kevin Garnett. And you can make the case that Chris Webber, along with Charles Barkley, is probably the most talented power forwards to ever play the game. And what I mean by that, here's a guy that can handle the ball. He can pass the ball. He can run the break. He can dunk it and be athletic. Great post up. Nice little mid-range. And while he was in his heyday, extending out to the three-point line for a big man wasn't there.
Right.
So it wasn't. But if he played today, he'd hit.
Oh, yeah, he would hit it all day.
And I mean, I think he led the league several years with the most assists from power forward position. I think for his career, he averages like 5.5. I mean, this is a guy that, again, I'm not saying he's the best power forward to play the game, and I'm not making the case that he is. But when you talk about all-around talent and sheer ability, he's probably one of the best all-around talented power forwards to ever play the game. He rebounds, he scores, facing the basket, back to the basket. His passing game is just bananas. And he wasn't a bad defender.
Mm.
So, and then his Michigan teams, I mean, the best team not to win one. He should have been in there before Tracy McGrady. And I stand by that argument. Tracy McGrady, yeah, he's a Hall of Famer.
He's definitely a Hall of Famer.
First time ballot, I disagree with.
I disagree with that.
And going in before Webber, I disagree with. Webber should be in the Hall of Fame.
And once again, I want to make sure that we're communicating this. We're not hating or knocking anyone that's in the Hall of Fame. Exactly. Tracy McGrady had a great, Ray Allen. Thank you, Ray Allen. Nash deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. All we're saying is, Hall of Fame, get your stuff together and get Chris Webber in there. I mean, they should have an emergency meeting tonight and vote him in.
Stop treating him like Jim Rice and Terrell Owens. He deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Well, our favorite time of the year is really about to
10 days
we're
away.
about to enter into it. The NBA playoffs. Now, March Madness, I was talking to Byron the other day, and he says, the March Madness, I get it. There's euphoria around March Madness. But when you come to the big boys and playoff basketball, there's nothing like it. And so we have some jockeying for seeding right now. I think the teams, well, in the West, there may be teams that can make it and can't make it, but we're down in this last 10 days. We're going to see what's going to happen. But in the East, which you're going to represent, talk about where things are going to, how things are going to play out.
Now, you've got a couple of different scenarios in the East. Because a few weeks ago, everyone thought the 1 and 2 seeds were wrapped up. Toronto was going to be the 1 seed. Boston was going to be a 2 seed. Well, wow. Wait just a minute. We got a little scenario here. With Toronto's loss to Cleveland tonight, if Boston wins, Boston is only 1 game behind Toronto.
And
they play again. They play this week. So that can change things dramatically. Then you got the 3-4 with Cleveland and Philly. Now, Philly's won 10 in a row. They are rolling. But why is it kept? Cleveland's rolling pretty good too. They've won 9 out of 10. So who gets 3? Who gets 4? Philly has a whole bunch of cream puffs all the way. They might run the table. They may go into the playoffs with. They got one game. They got one game next. No, it's Friday. They play Cleveland Friday.
Ooh.
That will be the game to determine who will probably be the 3 and who will be the 4.
Do you know the series record?
2-1. I believe it's 2-1 Cleveland. Don't quote me on that, y'all. Don't quote me. But I believe it's 2-1 Cleveland.
And it's in Philly.
It's in Philly. So that, and I think Cleveland will be coming off a back-to-back. So that's going to be interesting. Now, with Embiid out, Philly will be interesting. Does Philly do they get the 3 seed and get a chance to play? If they advance, they get a chance to play Boston. Will Kyrie be back? Well, wait a minute. Will Boston be the 1 seed and Toronto be the 2 seed by that point? By the time we get to the playoffs, at the bottom, I think the bottom is pretty much wrapped up. You got who will finish 7th and 8th between Miami and Milwaukee. But you got that 3, 4, 5, and 6. Cleveland's probably gonna finish 3 or 4. If they go on a little losing streak, they could finish. They can't finish worse than 6. So if they go on, I think they got 4 games left, or 5 games left. Now they had 6. Now they got 5. If they go on a little losing streak, they could fall all the way down to 6, where they don't have home court in any series. They okay. 3 or 4, they're okay now, but this will be the lowest seed that LeBron has had since his first time in the playoffs in 2006. So that's interesting. That's something to kind of really keep your eye on. So that's kind of where we are with the East.
I want to ask a question before we jump to the West on the East. If Boston should get the number 1 seed and have to play in the first round without Kyrie, who do you want to face if you're Boston?
If I'm Boston, I think I want to face Miami, because Miami is going to be a defensive struggle like a lot of 92, 88 games, 95, 91 games. But I think Boston can score just a little bit more than Miami. Now, you got both real good coaches if it's Miami. Because Spoelstra, we used to call him the video coach, but the video coach can coach pretty doggone well. When he had the Heatles, people kind of downplayed him. But he can coach pretty good. And Milwaukee will have an interim first-time coach going in. But they got a difference maker. And that's the thing when you get to the playoffs.
Is he a difference maker yet?
I think he'll be a playoff. This will be his third time. This will be his third go around in the playoffs. And I think he will feel comfortable playing. If I'm Milwaukee, I'm like, man, bring on Boston. Bring on Boston. Because without Kyrie, Boston can't score enough, and you can kind of match up in the playoffs. Brad Stevens is a great coach. But in the playoffs, you can kind of watch film and kind of catch everyone's tendencies to where if a great player gets hot, he can kind of win a series for you. And I think that's what a Greek freak may be.
I don't know. But Rob, let's go to the West.
Before I say that,
Right.
I just want to comment on what you just asked. I don't think it matters who Boston plays, whether it's Miami or Milwaukee. I think in the case with Miami right now, they got some internal issues going on with Hassan Whiteside. I think that could be a distraction going into the playoffs, and especially when you're going up against a well-oiled machine like the Boston Celtics. Then Milwaukee, here's the thing. I don't think the Greek Freak will be that difference maker in the playoffs simply because of who his point guard is. I think the Greek Freak needs to play with a pass-first point guard. Eric Bledsoe is not. And I think that with him looking for his shot and possibly passing the ball too late in the shot clock or not giving it to where the Greek Freak needs it
in his pocket,
it could be a problem. And one thing about Boston, I mean, if we get a playoff contract, the 5 of us in this room, you're not going to know it's us in the Boston uniform.
No.
Because That guy gets the best and the most from his players, regardless of the name on the back of that jersey. So I don't think it's going to matter who Boston plays. I think that they're going to get through the first round, and we'll see Kyrie Irving in the second round. Now going to the West, Houston, Golden State, and Portland has got it sold up. That's 1, 2, and 3. San Antonio, OKC, they're locked in the playoffs. It's just a matter of where they're going to be seated. From 10 through 4, only 4 games separates those teams. Now, I said it early on, and a couple of shows ago, I thought Minnesota would fall out, and I thought Cleveland would play on the road in the first round. And it doesn't look like Cleveland's going to play on the road. Minnesota still has a chance of falling out the playoffs. Right now, they sit a game and a half. They're in the 7th spot, but they're a game and a half above Denver, who's in 9th, and 2.5 games above the Clippers. I think it's safe to say the Clippers won't make the playoff.
Unfortunately.
Denver is a game and a half behind Minnesota and a game behind New Orleans for that last spot. I think Minnesota makes the playoffs. It's just a question of, do they remain at 7 or do they finish at 8?
Let me ask you something. New Orleans. Does New Orleans fall out? Because they were red hot about a month ago, and they've cooled off. I think maybe they had a stretch where they played 5 games in 6 nights, 3 games back to back. And ever since then, they've kind of cooled off. I guess the effect of playing without Boogie Cousins, which is a shame because I really think they would have had made some damage. They would have did big damage in the playoffs with Boogie and Anthony Davis. Do they fall out of the playoffs, which would be a disaster for them?
I think they maintain. I think they stay in. Whether it's the 8th or the 7th spot, I think they stay in. And I think it's because the Millsap that Denver was expecting to get hasn't shown up all year.
He's hurt.
And I think his return might have disrupted some things there. I think Denver falls short after having a fairly good year. They're going to win close to 45 games, and they're going to miss the playoffs. I think that the 8 that's in place right now out west, I would be surprised if that's not what finishes out west.
I don't know. With losing 4 straight with New Orleans, and just like you said, they were so hot a few weeks ago and now so cold, they could fall out of the playoffs. But, I mean, Denver is not playing anything. LA is just, not doing anything. So they may just back in. But, I mean, Houston is just going to slap them around.
During that stretch that they had where they lost a few games, Rondo was out.
Mm-hmm.
Rondo makes a big difference over there. I had an argument one day with Justin Terman on NBA radio, and he was making a reference about how Carmelo has just completely fell off. And he was comparing Carmelo at his age now to Paul Pierce, when Paul Pierce was Carmelo's age in Boston. And Carmelo's averaging 16 points a game. Paul Pierce is averaging 20 points a game. That's what it is. He shot better. And Boston, I believe, lost in the conference finals that year to Miami. And I tried to tell him that was an unfair comparison. I'll give him that Carmelo has lost something. But to compare him to Paul Pierce is unfair, because if Paul Pierce played with Westbrook, he wouldn't have had those numbers. And trust me, if Carmelo played in a system with Rondo, who's a pass-first point guard, who gets you the ball, as you mentioned, pocket, sweet spot, it makes the game so much easier. Right now, Carmelo, so many times I see him get the ball, and it's 4 seconds left on the shot clock. That will never happen if Rondo as your point guard. Mm-hmm. And that is the detriment of playing with a pass-first point guard. But that's the beauty of playing with a Rondo who is a difference maker when he's healthy. in New Orleans. I mean, Drew Holiday is having a sensational year, a career year, because of Rondo. Anthony Davis, when Rondo is on the court, has so much better stats because of Rondo. And I remember DeMarcus Cousins saying, when he played with him in Sacramento, bring him back. They chose not to. But he had great stats when Rondo was there, and he also had great stats in New Orleans.
You bring up something when you talk about Carmelo and who he's playing with. Makes me think about the Western Conference seedings. What is OKC going to do? I mean, as great as Westbrook is, he also can be a pain in the butt watching him and shooting threes and shooting air balls and, not moving that ball and thinking that he's the only one that can do it. And I love him, so I'm not knocking him. But what are your thoughts? Go ahead.
Now, everyone's gonna jump on the Westbrook train. Have you all seen the drop off in Paul George the month of March and going into April? His drop off is dramatic. His splits have been bad since after the All-Star break. So yeah, Carmelo hasn't been great, and Westbrook can be erratic because he can be hot. He can run hot and cold. But the thing with Paul George, they really, really, really miss Andre Robertson. Self-check. I call him self-check because you don't really have to check him, but he was a heck of a defensive player.
I may have to disagree with you on that.
Rob, I think we're going to have to
Because
disagree.
I watch OKC, that's like my second favorite team because I'm a huge Westbrook fan, but I'm a bigger Melo fan. And Corey Brewer has made people forget about Andre Robertson.
Right, he started off.
He comes in, he starts. He's a better scorer than him. His defense he's right at home with that. He's comfortable, and this is a guy. Yeah, he plays hard. He's playing for his college coach, and he couldn't be happier. And the problem that OKC has, and I picked them to go to the conference finals. The problem that they have is the blessing and the curse. It's Westbrook. Westbrook has two bona fide stars on the team. One's an all-star, one's just a star. They both probably got trails going towards the Hall of Fame one day. He cannot pass them the ball with 5 seconds or less. He has to recognize where is best for them to receive that ball in order to get the best of them. And if that means sacrificing his baskets for the betterment of those two players, then he needs to do it. Because Westbrook could be the star of the game with 15 points, 11 rebounds, and 12 assists than having to have 35 points, 9 rebounds, and 12 assists and shooting 12 for 40.
We're going to close on this. You talked about Isaiah couldn't be at 30,000 points even if he played 17 years. But you know why? Chuck Daly went to him early in his career. He says, you can score a lot of points or you can win titles. And someone has to have that conversation with Westbrook.
Exactly.
You can have a lot of stats or you can win titles. What's important to you? If it's winning titles, get the other players involved. It's going to make the game easier for you.
And everyone else.
And everyone else. Well, if Deep Hoops Day is my favorite day of the week, my favorite part of Deep Hoops Day is the closing comments. Rob, what are you talking about?
Well, my closing comments is going to center around the Hall of Fame inductees. When we mentioned the Hall of Fame, we got a little bit spirited and heated over the fact that Chris Webber didn't make the Hall of Fame. But I want to talk about the Hall of Fame. The college that produced the most Hall of Fame members is UCLA with 6. The next college is Kentucky and North Carolina. They both produce 5. And then you have Ohio State, who I don't remember any of these players. They have 4, along with Georgetown with 4. And I know all of Georgetown's players. And Indiana has 4. You might wonder, where am I going with this? For years, one of the best coaches in the game of basketball was Coach K. And until this year, Grant Hill, probably to the surprise of many, is the only player that played at Duke that has been elected to the Hall of Fame. I want that to sink in. Coach K is regarded as the, perhaps maybe next to Wooden, the greatest college coach out there. I mean, he's even got the nod to run Team USA, had many offers to go pro, he turned it down. He gets the best recruits year after year. But to learn that Grant Hill is the only player to be a Hall of Famer to come out of college of Duke University. That's talking about Christian Laettner, Carlos Boozer, Elton Brand, Johnny Dawkins, Mark Allery, Jay Billis. I believe Jay Billis. Yeah, Jay Billis. Mm-hmm. Yes. It's surprising and it's shocking. But I bring it up to say this. The last player, let me give you the list of Kentucky players that have made it to the Hall of Fame. Dan Issel, Pat Riley, Louis Dampier, Frank Ramsey, Cliff Hagan. Has any of them played in the last 25 years? Again, to you young ball players out there that has aspirations to grow in this field, get into this arena and play it for a living. Don't choose the school based off of the coach. Choose the program that fits your style and that's best suited for you. Because great players can come from any university. It comes down to you and what the program can provide for you. Those are my closing comments.
All right, Rob. Yeah, I knew that Grant Hill was the only Duke player to make the Hall of Fame, but I think his run is not been as long as some of those other storied franchises. So maybe there'll be some other Duke ball players. I think Kyrie Irving.
That might be the only one.
Yeah, maybe. We'll see.
Austin Rivers?
Nah. But I mean, these two young guys, Wendell Carter, and maybe they'll have something to say about that. But we'll see. We'll see. You know, my closing comments are going to be quick. The reason they're going to be quick, I'm going to butcher the young lady's name. I've been rehearsing it and practicing it. But you know what? We would be remiss if we would let this podcast end and not mention Notre Dame. And here I go. Araiki Ogunbowalis. And I'm just going to say my girl from here on out. I'm not going to butcher her name anymore. My girl not only hit the winning basket to beat Mississippi State in the NCAA finals on the women's side. To get to the finals, she hit the winning shot that beat UConn of all teams, the greatest female basketball team of all time. Maybe Tennessee is up there with them. But she hit the winning, a buzzer beater shot to beat UConn and then came back with the pressure on in the finals and did it again. I don't remember Michael Jordan doing that twice in the playoffs. I don't remember anyone. So my girl, because I'm not going to butcher your name. I give respect to names. I put respect on a name. I'm not going to butcher your name. I'm just going to call you my girl. But you know what? Beautiful job. Wonderful thing that you were able to do. And then I watched the interviews with her, and she was so gracious. And Kobe Bryant sent her a text at the end after the UConn game. He was at the game. He sent her a text saying, "Congratulations, something about being clutch." And she said, "Oh my God," responded back, not a text, but an I am. And she responded back saying, "It's now over. I've reached the pinnacle." And Kobe sent her back, "No, you didn't. You have another game." "No, you didn't. You have another game." And you know what? She responded like the Black Mamba and hit the big shot to win the game.
She Mama.
She Mama. That's her new name, She Mama. So She Mama, congratulations. Notre Dame, congratulations. It's great that we can also talk about NCAA female basketball, because really those games were more compelling than the championship game that we saw last night. I am the minister.
And I'm Ra.
And for Tim Brayboy, this is Deep Hoops. Just keep in mind, we're not experts, but we're passionate fans talking about the game that we love. We'll see you next time. Peace.